Welcome to the New York.
No, Cutler does that. Just a quick whip around. Just a big picture headline on the Rangers.
Rangers looking good. Series now tied up at 2 games apiece. Game 5 being in Carolina on Thursday night.
And the baseball action, certainly entertaining. We'll talk about the Yankees' walk-off win and revisit some of the on-field chatter of Josh Donaldson and his buddy T.A.
We'll be joined by Anthony McCarron to lend his expert opinion on the show. And as always, we're recording high above 42nd Street in the heart of New York City.
This is the Pix 11 New York Sports Nation podcast.
Now let's welcome aboard Anthony McCarron, Sports SNY. He covers baseball, obviously, cover a little Rangers playoff hockey as well. Anthony, welcome aboard, brother. How are you?
I'm good, Moose. How you doing?
Doing well. How's the hockey treating you, covering hockey so far?
Well, I mean, it's a thrill, to be quite honest with you. You know, I'm an old-timey hockey beat writer. I covered the Islanders back in the late 1990s for the Daily News. That was a terrible era of Islander hockey, if you can imagine, if you can remember back that far. And I really had a tough time getting stories in the paper that didn't have to do with, the Coliseum, problems with the Coliseum or ownership or any of that stuff. One of my introductions to that beat was taking the great Stan Fischler, giving him a ride from Manhattan out to the Maven, exactly, out to a Nassau County courthouse because there was some sort of, I can't even remember what it was, but there was some sort of lawsuit going on. And that was one of my introductions to hockey writing. So it's a long way of saying this is much better. Hockey playoff action is phenomenal.
Especially at the Garden. What do you think of those crowds?
Great atmosphere. It's really been electric there. And, you know, if you've ever attended a game there, you know that the building is just sky high from right before the puck drops. And it's just great. And the intensity of the games is really remarkable. I mean, I didn't get any playoff hockey back in my day. I think I did maybe a Devils game or two when they were early rounds only. But the Islanders never made it while I was on the beat. So this is good stuff.
And this is karma. Putting all that in the bank was leading up to this here. You got to see 2 wins here in the second round in a 2-2 series that's been ridiculously competitive so far. So what have you seen from it?
Well, you know, I love the way the Rangers responded to losing 2 in Carolina. I mean, obviously they had no choice but to do it or else the series would be over quickly. But they're better than that, I think. And, you know, playing at home really energized them. I think the bit of chippiness at the end of Game 3 sort of gave them a jolt going into Game 4. Their stars arrived at the Garden as well and really started playing well and producing, which I thought was a big factor as well. And, you know, the trade deadline acquisitions have been big. You know, the only thing the Rangers really haven't done a whole lot of in this series is they stink on the faceoffs. I mean, even I can see that. and the numbers are just, they're unsightly. But look, they've gotten the 2 wins here, and now, you know, they've got to figure out a way to steal 1 in Carolina and then, you know, get 1 in Game 6 back at the Garden.
Let's talk about Game 4. Joe and Moose, I want your opinion as well. You guys have been out covering it for Pix 11. Obviously, that's where we cornered Anthony and figured him to do our show. But was Game 4's win, gentlemen, we'll start with Anthony and then go around the table, the best that you've seen the Rangers perform in the postseason, Anthony?
Yes, I think that was their most complete game. That was a real narrative after the game, after Game 4, was that was the one that they had done so many things well in. You know, they finally dented. Carolina's got a great penalty kill. They've now scored twice in a row on the power play against Carolina, which is a big deal. And you know, so I think that really, they really took the energy of the crowd going forward, and it was really just a nice, you know, a nice game for them to win. They were in control, and I thought one of their problems early on in the series is that they, you know, especially that first game, they kind of lulled a little bit at times, and they didn't let the lull last too long in Game 4, and they came back from that and were aggressive and pushed the lead again to 3 goals after they gave 1 up. So I thought it was they really looked great in Game 4.
Yeah, now it's a matter of whether or not they can carry that into Game 5 in Carolina on Thursday night. But yeah, I mean, they out-hit them. The face-offs were terrible. The defense held up. Anthony, you mentioned again contributions from like Mott and Kopp. Kopp had 3 points. I think that's a career playoff high. Mott, you've seen him being juggled across both the third and fourth line for Gerard Gallant. And the thing that was most impressive to me about Game 4 as compared to Game 3 was, you didn't see Shesterkin under as much duress in Game 4 as you did in Game 3. So they were able to generate offense, but also be really defensive minded. And that's the interesting thing going to Carolina, where they played a very, very conservative game. Can they take their game that they had at the Garden Game 4, and will that be able to translate on the road Thursday night down in Raleigh? That's the hard thing to imagine, because, there were times where the Rangers were in their own zone for long durations of time on Tuesday night. That can't happen in Carolina, or else the Hurricanes are going to score more than obviously than they scored in New York.
But when you look at this is the first Game 4, where either team has really dominated.
Yeah.
I thought the two games in Carolina were hotly contested down the end. And if it wasn't for that shorthanded goal in Game 2, that late goal, which you felt was coming in Game 1 for Carolina here, the Rangers could be up in this series 3-1. And I think you got to feel great going back, knowing that Carolina still hasn't won on the road. You got to take one out of two down there.
One thing I would say is I think Game 3 Carolina was the better team. Shesterkin was the best player on the ice.
And I think, that's the great equalizer, though, isn't it, in playoff hockey?
No, for sure. I get it. But Game 4 was a great all-around team performance. They were physical. They converted on the power play. Shesterkin did his job. Yeah.
Didn't take bad penalties.
No, they didn't take bad penalties. Very, very true.
So
So that's where I look at it, where I'd be a little nervous of Shesterkin having to put the Superman cape on the road. Not saying he's not capable of it, but you don't want Shesterkin making 45 saves or having to make 45 saves on the road.
I want to pick up on that, Moose. I think that Igor's been a rock since his disastrous trip to Pittsburgh, where he didn't finish games 3 and 4. And just to pile on to your point, in Game 3, he had 43 stops. In Game 4, he had 30 saves. So the question is, and he played well in Game 1 and 2, is he, A, the key to winning this series, and B, why can't he play well in Carolina and still win? Anthony?
Yeah, I do think he's the key, because he's their advantage. Ranta's played pretty well for Carolina in the series too, and has made some tremendous saves. But I think Shesterkin just gives the Rangers more of a mental edge, because it's funny when the Rangers are asked after games about him, they're all kind of like, it's another great game, and they're asked about Shesterkin and his efforts, and they're like, yeah, that's what he does every night.
Yeah, he's great again.
Yeah. This is, what was Gallant's quote yesterday? That's the same zone I've seen him in every time I've seen him, or since I got here, or whatever. And so it's remarkable the ease with which they sort of accept his brilliance. And I think at the root of that, they know that unless he's brilliant, they're probably going to have a hard time winning 2 out of the next 3 games.
Yeah, and I can. That's very, very understandable. Now you have to see Carolina, obviously, in their previous series against Boston, everyone won on home ice. So they've yet to win a game on the road. The Rangers obviously were close to winning in Carolina the first 2 games. I would imagine it's going to be a very, very significant difference in the Hurricanes tomorrow night after losing 2 straight, being back at home, as compared to what we saw, say, in Game 4. Now it's a question of how do the Rangers react to that.
I look at these 2 games at home, though, for the Rangers, and I think it was a conscious effort by Gallant to give up a little bit on that defensive end in order to get more offense, because I think it was in Game 2, the 2 teams combined for 42 shots on goal. And he has said, we want pucks on the net, right? That was the mantra against Pittsburgh. So I think they're giving up more opportunities in an effort to looking to get out and maybe get some odd man rushes against Ranta, because I think Gallant knows that's where his advantage is. It's in the goalkeeper. And if you're going to face 5 more shots, if you're Shesterkin versus Ranta, I think he'll sacrifice that. He'll bet on his goalie to make those 5 saves. And ultimately, that could be the difference in the series. He's going to put it on Igor's shoulders.
Yeah.
Look, there's a reason he's a finalist for the Hart Trophy, right? Forget about the Vezina. He's the MVP in the league. Right. I know he's not going to win it.
But still.
But the fact that he's even mentioned in those categories, in that category, is the reason the Rangers are where they are.
Yeah.
All right, so I find it interesting that the Canes have not lost at home in the postseason, and they also have not won on the road. Obviously, winning all 4 home games to get past the Bruins, and then winning the first 2 at home, and then losing the second 2 at the Garden. Anthony, what is it about the Canes? Because in hockey, there's so much puck luck, where somebody just throws it at the net, bounces off a skate or off of a stick and goes in. Why have the Canes won every home game, and what do the Rangers have to do to break this streak in Game 5?
You know, I think that's the question that the series sort of hinges on beyond Shesterkin's performance, because I'm thinking back to Game 1 where the Rangers completely outplayed them for probably close to 50 minutes in that game. But I felt like the wave that Carolina, the desperation spurred on by their fans in that game to get the two goals was just overwhelming, and I didn't think the Rangers could withstand it. And I think that's where their sort of home ice advantage stems from, because it was just, I was only watching the game on television, but it was like an onslaught, with the Canes flying around, buzzing around like crazy.
For people listening, I got to tell you, Anthony just put his hands in front of his face as though the pucks were coming at him. But I felt the same way. I was right there with you.
I know. I was exhausted, like sitting down. I was exhausted from the pressure that Carolina was putting on the Rangers, hundreds of miles away. So, I think that they've got that home ice confidence, in the same way that the Rangers do. And, I just think it sort of sprouted in that game, and they're 6-0 at home during these playoffs, and it's remarkable. And I just think that they I don't know if they came to New York and they felt like, well, we can't play that well here because we play really well at home. And, we're really good at home, but I don't know if we can play that way here.
But I don't know. In game three, early on, they were putting a lot of heat on Shesterkin. Last night, I felt that way. Last night, I felt like their bags were packed and they were already, down in Carolina, say, we're going to take game 5. Right.
With Vince.
Yeah. But game 3, they were flying. And early on, the Rangers, the goals went the Rangers' way, but they were putting so much pressure. And I thought that forecheck was ridiculous out there in game 3. So I think the fact that they expended that energy, and then, of course, you mentioned it earlier, the tussle at the end of game 3, I think gave the Rangers that little extra motivation they needed.
Let's talk.
I love how those guys, by the way, after Game 3, some of them were or in the lead up to Game 4, some of them were saying, like, well, you don't really, that's not the physical stuff. Is you're just trying to put a hit on somebody and play your game and all that stuff. And like I felt like they were almost salivating over the coming physicality for Game 4 that they knew was looming. And I really think that got them, that hit by Trouba in Game 4 that precipitated the fight, that got the instigator penalty on Carolina, that gave them the power play that they then converted. That might be the play of the series, other than some spectacular Shesterkin saves.
Let's not forget too, Capo Caco, wide open net. This could be a 3-1 Rangers lead going back to Carolina. That's how that's how little it is. Yeah, that's how little the difference has been in the series.
But Anthony, that was my next question. How important is it that the Rangers are playing disciplined hockey? So after Trouba, massive hit on Ty Domi's son, they played discipline, and unlike Ty Domi, they didn't fight. The instigator penalty went to Lorenz, and the Rangers, Frank scores the goal, which puts them up 1-0. So is that Gallant? Is that the Rangers playing disciplined? And how critical can that be the rest of the way? Because the power play, the special teams, is really, besides puck luck, the biggest difference in playoff hockey.
Right, definitely. And I think the Rangers are aware. Gallant made a mention of it after Game 4 about the penalties. If you take the dumb ones, they're going to come and bite you. And he was very happy that there was a big disparity in penalty minutes in Game 4 because the Rangers were more disciplined than Carolina was. And you could see that. And the Rangers penalty kill has been great the whole series so far, which is a big deal. But the fact that they played physical, they got their point across. Ryan Reeves was out there looking like a member of the Avengers. He was like, that was, you're watching from the press box and you're like, yikes. So he got his sort of point across about, you mess with our guys, this is coming. But they did it without being silly, and they did it without being, reckless. And they got their physical hits in, and they made their plays without taking it, without going off the ice. And that's just huge.
What about, Anthony, what you're seeing with Panarin? We've seen Zibanejad obviously picked it up since Game 6 of the Pittsburgh series. I think he's got 14 or 15 points throughout the playoffs so far. What about Artemi? Missed on a semi-breakaway last night against Carolina. But he had the game winner against the Penguins in Game 7 to send him on to this round. But he's not the same impact offensive player that he was in the regular season. What do you see Panarin rest of the series?
Yeah, he has not been that guy, Moose, and it's surprising. You thought that he would get a jolt from the Game 7 goal. I was wondering maybe if the Game 4 chance that he had, which was a pretty good one, might be something that would get him going a little bit. But he has too often been sort of absent from, you're watching and you don't see him and you don't feel his presence.
No impact.
Right. You don't think that there's any danger there. You're not scared. You're not scared of him if you're the opposition at this point. Now, look, hockey is unlike, baseball guys. Like hockey, they're always hurt at this time of year, and understandably so, because it's incredibly physical, the game, and exhausting and all that sort of stuff. And you also get no information about who's hurt,
Right. Lower and upper body, you get that.
Right, exactly. And that's as detailed as they'll go. I mean, and that's, wow, super specific.
Right.
But, so I don't know, is that something that's happening here? I don't know. I just feel like he's, for a guy who you can't take your eyes off sometimes, there's no reason to put your eyes on him now.
I think he needs to be a little more aggressive. I mean, when you see him out there, he's made those ridiculous passes throughout the regular season. In playoff hockey, especially against this team, as fast as they are, I think he needs to put more shots. I mean, I feel like Game 3, we were out there, Todd, the crowd was yelling shoot a couple times. He obviously made the great pass to Mika in that one. But I think if he puts more pucks on net, that hopefully will get him going. And that's, I feel like, what Gallant wants him to do.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with you. I just wonder if maybe he's hurt a little bit. He was banged up toward the tail end of the season, then showed up at the last practice before that Penguin series and was on the ice A-OK, but was dealing with a little bit of an upper body injury. No specifics to it, but I wonder just how healthy Panarin is. But they're going to need him. I mean, that's it. I mean, you need your big guns. Kreider, Zibanejad, obviously Panarin, Fox. I mean, Shesterkin's now just kind of the steadying force in the net. We know how reliant this team is on him. But to score points, they need those guys. I mean, you're getting a tremendous impact from Mott. I think him coming back off injury, Anthony, has been, a welcome for Gerard Gallant, especially with the Barclay Goodrow foot injury and the fractured, I believe it's a fractured ankle because he's in a walking boot after taking the shot early in that Penguin series. Mott has been an impactful fourth and third liner here for Gerard Gallant.
Yes, absolutely, Moose, active and all that sort of stuff that you kind of expect from him. I want to touch on one thing that I think is a fun sort of comparison between putting the puck on the net, which Joe, you were talking about it. Sometimes I feel like the Rangers are trying to make the extra beautiful pass, and maybe it doesn't work. It doesn't always work out. But like I'm sitting in the press box looking down, and I'm going like shoot, and maybe they should. And maybe the comparison is putting the puck on net sometimes is just like putting the ball in play in baseball.
Yeah,
and you get things happen when the puck is in motion and the goalie's got to deal with it, and there's guys in front screening him, and there's physicality happening in front of the crease. So I wonder, if you could just forget about that. I mean, not that they're going for the highlight or anything, but they think, extra pass. Coaches always preach it in any sport, and they love it and they want it. But sometimes I just think, I mean, look, there've been goals where the puck has just been flicked in there and boom, all of a sudden it's behind the guy.
From behind the net.
Yeah, right, exactly.
That goal worked out, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And putting the ball in play is working out for the Mets.
Yep, I agree 1,000%. I mean, I think that in hockey, it can deflect off a stick, a skate, pass off pad, and somebody gets the deflection. So I agree. Shoot the puck. Agree 100%. I also want to agree with my esteemed colleague to the right of me, my favorite sportscasting animal. So when I asked him last night, who do you think is the most dangerous Ranger? And the Moose said the bread man. And I think the bread man's got to step up for them to win this series. Yeah. So I agree with that. And now it's prediction time. So we'll start with Anthony. We'll go around the room. Who's going to win Game 5? Who's going to win the series?
Carolina's going to win Game 5 because,
I'm sorry, Anthony. On this podcast, we try to pander to our audience.
It's your job.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Wait, that's my job. Don't steal my job. Keep going. Carry on.
I was going to say, because like Gerard Gallant, I don't believe in momentum, which I mean, his whole thing last night was hilarious with that. Yeah, I think they're going to get a boost. And then, but then I think that the Rangers are going to win game 6. And then, do you want me to go further than that?
Yeah. Just one game further. That's all I want. Who's going to win the last game?
I predicted Carolina in 7 before the series in my SNY
What do you
preview.
Ken David off?
What's that?
What do you Ken David off? All year he always has to stick to his preseason prediction. I'm like, Ken, geez, things change, man. It's okay.
Well, but I was going to say that now, after watching them play game 3 and 4, especially game 4, I'm kind of drunk on the Rangers' potential here. So maybe I'm going to switch up.
Yeah, it's the right thing to do.
Yeah. And, look, there's going to be people who are telling me, oh, you got no integrity. You can't stick with your predictions. Gutless.
I have no integrity. I think you're doing the right thing.
It's overrated. Yeah.
Right. Integrity.
So, but I think they finally figure out how to steal one thanks to Igor, and they get enough in Carolina in game 7.
Last week.
Plus, I want to keep covering hockey, guys. I don't mean to.
Yeah, I'm with you.
We love having you up in the press box with us.
It's a beautiful thing. Listen, I said Rangers in 7 last week. I'm going to stick with Rangers in 7. I think Carolina takes game 5, same thing. And Igor's the difference in game 7. That's what it comes down to. Even if Anderson comes back, a cold Anderson, if that's his first game, a game 7, the Penguins tried it. Jari was okay. I think the Igor will be better.
Yeah, I'm sticking with Carolina. I think Carolina wins at 7. I'm
my
sorry.
second favorite sportscasting
I
animal.
apologize. I picked them before the series started, Carolina in 7. Not that I'm not rooting for the Rangers. Of course I am.
Hard.
You know
Longtime
that
Ranger
night.
fan,
I'm sorry, but
yeah.
if this goes 7, Moose is going to be on the edge of his seat cheering for the Rangers.
Yes, of course.
So loud and so
Of
proud,
course, I
regardless
know.
of what he
I
says
know.
here. His heart and his head are wrestling right now.
I agree with you. I agree with you. Heart-wise, it'd be Rangers in 5. Unfortunately,
go.
tomorrow night is game 5, and the series is tied at 2 apiece.
You could have Rangers in 6 if you
I
want.
could have
Still on
Rangers
the
in
That's still
6.
available.
Yes.
Thank you very much. You're going Rangers in
7.
7.
Oh,
And 7.
wow.
Well, Carolina's got to lose at home. It's not going to be in game 5. We all agree on that.
Okay.
There's no way the Garden fans let the Rangers lose at home. No way. So it goes to game 7, and that's where the Breadman scores the winning goal,
Nice.
making the Moose look smart. Or, well, I mean, smarter than it already looked.
Yeah.
He's like summa
Need
cum
all the help
laude.
I can get.
He's summa cum laude in New York
Yeah.
sports. So I'm just saying.
Valedictorian.
Yes,
Excellent
exactly.
That's
sports
it.
department.
That's it.
All right, so now that we've got the Rangers moving on, we'll have Anthony back for the next round. Let's talk Yankee baseball. Let's start with the fact that they're 30-13 right now, have the best record in the American League. They've got some injuries in the rotation and hitters. What do we think about the Yankees season so far?
Yeah, I mean, I'll let Anthony go. I mean, they've been great. I mean, how could you not be? But now you're dealing with a little bit, bang up with DJ LeMahieu,
concerned?
Giancarlo Stanton. I mean, the thing.
What about the closer?
Yeah, I mean, Chapman,
just said.
dealing with the Achilles and being placed on the IL. But Chapman, you've seen a regression since they cracked down on the sticky stuff.
Well,
and
he's old like me.
Yeah, well, he's only 34. I mean, you think about it.
I look 34.
Yeah. Dude,
I act 24.
wait a second. What?
Joe, you left a little
I think we
while
can do an
ago.
entire podcast on Todd thinking
It's
he
not
looks 34.
video.
I think we can.
This just became an intervention.
I know. Wait, what?
Listen, we haven't started the video portion of
I
the
just
podcast.
forgot about the Yankees after you said I look 34. I was like, wait, what?
What?
They've been great.
I
I
didn't
mean,
even
they've
put
been
the
great.
Zoom filter on for Anthony.
The thing that it has been that I'm really ecstatic about. I like guys who bet on themselves, and Judge bet on himself before the start of the year, turning down that 7-year, $213.5 million deal, faced the pressure, and right up until this point in time, I mean, he's the MVP of the American League.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, Judge, I love that Judge bet on himself, too. I feel like that Yankee offer was kind of a semi-fair offer, but I think it was also an offer they knew he was not going to take. I mean, he shouldn't take a contract that's less than $35 million a year, and the price on that is probably going up from there. I mean, Anthony Rendon got $35 million a year a couple of years ago, and Judge is
He was coming off of a World Series championship in Washington, D.C., our nation's capital.
I mean, take the national underwear off for a second,
I
Todd,
can't.
all right? I mean, just
What
for
do you
a
mean?
second.
Very tight,
I
because because they're boy size. He has to take it off since the team moved there.
I mean,
did he or did he not? He earned that
he also
contract.
left your team.
I know.
He left your team.
Wait a minute. Be careful, Moose, because it's possible Judge does that.
He didn't want to take you.
Moose, I might need a hug. I'm still upset about it. I've got an autographed Rendon picture from the World Series in my basement. Next, actually, the toy wood trains. You got my son.
There you go.
Which he loves.
But Anthony, I agree.
I love the genie bottle that I just popped open there too by bringing Rendon into it.
Anthony, I totally agree with you about the Yankees. I was really critical of Cashman and about him coming out opening day, making that offer public. It ticked off Judge. And ticked off his agents because
terrible.
Why you go out there and make that public? I think they wanted to try and win the court of public appeal with Yankee fans because they're always going to win because fans are going to say, how do you, if you really want to be a Yankee for life, how do you turn down $30.5 million? Oh, you've been banged up, you've been injured. There's not a more valuable guy on this team. And he's the face of the entire team. It's not Garrett Cole. It's not Stan. It's not Rizzo. It's not Boone. It's nobody
Judge.
else. It's Aaron Judge.
Yeah.
I mean, you have young Yankee fans. My kids, they all love Aaron Judge. A little Gleyber Torres. Yeah, but the point being is, I totally agree. If you really wanted to sign Judge, the offer had to be 7 for $245 at $35 million a year as a starting point instead of 7 213 and a half.
Good.
Yeah, I mean
like the way
that's where you need to be.
And if he says no after that, Moose, and says, no, I'm going to bet on myself that I can do even better once I get to the open market, then I think you can say the Yankees did their actual due diligence and gave a fair market offer.
We're splitting hairs now, whether it's $30 million or $35 million when they come out with their
Well, but these guys, look, this is my worldview on this kind of thing. The stars at the pinnacle of that sport are not employees of the team in the same way that we're all employees somewhere, and they're not workaday Joes who are, bringing a lunch pail or anything like that. It's not the same thing. They are Hollywood movie stars. They are the biggest acts.
Is what they are. They're mercenaries, Anthony.
And that's fine, but they should be going for the highest price. Yeah. They can do something that there's 1,000 people on the planet who can do, and that's play in the major leagues. And guys like Aaron Judge are doing stuff that only 10 or 15 people can do, and that's play in the major leagues at that level. There's no comparison between, he shouldn't accept what, it's only a couple million, he should accept less. He should accept what his worth is.
Well, and here's
what
the other
he
thing.
feels his worth is.
Anthony, and he's got one bite at it. I mean, that's the other issue. Because of his age, because he was drafted out of college. He's not 25 hitting free agency where you say, oh, okay, I'll take a short-term deal and then I could hit it again at 29 or 30 and then really cash in, with payrolls and salaries going up. This is it. I mean, this is Aaron Judge's one really conceivable crack at making this kind of money. So if you're Judge, why are you going to sign for $213.5? We all know there's some owner out there that is salivating at the idea of bringing Aaron Judge aboard and saying,
right across the Triborough Bridge.
I'll give you $300 million. You're going to be the face of my team. I'm going to be able to market you. I'm going to be able to sell you. I'll sell the number 90. I mean, because he's a top 5 face in the entire sport. He is a more well-known commodity than Mike Trout, and Mike Trout's the best baseball player in the world.
Yeah, let me say this, Anthony and Moose, because I agree with you guys. I don't begrudge Judge for taking his shot, right, for betting on himself, but I also don't begrudge Cashman for coming out and saying what the offer is. And I know
he never does that.
I know.
Do that.
I know you have the issue, but Aaron Judge isn't just any other player. You got to show the Yankee faithful that look, $30 million is a reasonable offer from their part. I don't think that that's a bad offer. And if you didn't have this come out, everybody would be like, well, why couldn't you sign a deal? We'd still be talking about this left and right. Look, bottom line is right now.
We're still talking about it.
Yeah, but we're talking about it in a different context. We're talking about it on he's bet on himself. He's playing fantastic. We'll pay him more now. We're okay paying him more from the fan base. But nobody's upset about the offer that the Yankees made. Nobody's upset about the fact that they didn't sign their player in the offseason. They made a reasonable offer. Judge said, thanks, no thanks. I'm going to bet on myself and see how this plays out.
But to the point that Anthony was making, not going above and beyond, here's the problem that you bring up the Mets. For Cohen, it's a passion play.
Yeah.
It's not a passion play for Hal.
Right, it's a business. Anthony
has been covering baseball in this. It's completely different than when his father was owning this team and George Steinbrenner as compared to Hal owning this team, where you're looking at the bottom line. He's going to spend. But it's not going above and beyond. Cohen's willing to go above and beyond. is Hal Steinbrenner willing to go above and beyond? George did at one point in time to his own fault. Now, is Hal willing? The one thing that Hal never wants to be compared to his father.
Right.
We've seen that time and time again.
They're completely different. They are completely different. And just because one has the same last name as the other doesn't mean that they're going to share any ownership traits, particularly that one where it's just, I want the player, pay the player, and I don't want to hear anything else about it. We need to sign that guy.
But
Hal doesn't operate that way.
If there is one player who that's going to be the case for, it's going to be Aaron Judge when this contract comes up. Because he is the voice of, he is the Yankees, right? He is the next person who's going to have a C.
He's their next Jeter, or their current Jeter.
Anthony, before we let you go, want to ask you about Donaldson, the suspension by Major League Baseball. What did you make of it? Obviously, he's appealing it. We saw the statement come out. I'm curious how you read the statement by Major League Baseball, and do you think the suspension of Donaldson's justified?
I do. I do think that his words precipitated an on-field incident, and I do think Major League Baseball had to act, to be quite honest with you. I feel like a lot of the talk about this incident has been an effort to explain Josh Donaldson's actions and why he would do it and why he wouldn't do it and what it means and what it doesn't mean. I think the main thing out of that point is how Tim Anderson reacted to it. What did he think? And that's really as far, to me, as the conversation should go. Donaldson comes out and says that it's an inside joke between the two of them. I mean, you're not reading the room then very well, because it's clear that you are not friends with Tim Anderson. And look, we don't know what's in Donaldson's heart of hearts. We don't know if he meant it as a racist comment or he was just being a needler. He was just trying to antagonize an opposing player to get in his head a little bit. But Tim Anderson's reaction is telling to me. And, I just feel like there's been this incredible effort to say, well, it wasn't this, it wasn't that. It's like, I'm taking my lead from Tim Anderson on this. And he found it to be very offensive, and then actually came out a couple of days afterward and said that he had told Josh Donaldson when he did it the first time, when they were having their inside joke, don't ever talk to me again. And Donaldson persisted. And look, it's interesting that he's appealing. I don't know what's going to happen with that. I'm sure that he doesn't want anybody to think that he's a racist. But I think that people are allowed to interpret this any way they want, and, with their own life experience. And Tim Anderson can interpret it the way he wants as well. If you take Donaldson at his word, that he was doing it as an inside joke, I'm not sure that's believable at this point, especially after what Anderson said following that. Yeah. And I'm just like, they're not friends.
There is no doubt in my mind that Josh Donaldson was doing it to push buttons, to antagonize and to needle him a little bit. But I don't know when, it's funny to me because looking back, the first person to say racism on this was Tony La Russa. Right. We didn't hear that out of Anderson. No. Even when he was asked about it, was the reporter asking him, hey, here's what your manager said. What do you think about that? So, look, I have no doubt that Josh Donaldson likes to get under people's skin, right? He did it with the Yankees last year when he was commenting on Garrett Cole and the sticky stuff situation there. It's his MO. It's why the Yankees wanted him a little bit.
Yeah.
But the racism thing, I hate that Tony La Russa was the guy who brought it up, because I agree with you. What was Tim Anderson's reaction? I don't think he liked it. I think Donaldson was doing it to get under his skin. But the fact that it came from the source that it did, that seemed to have stirred all this up is the issue. And it's a shame because it's Jackie freaking Robinson, out of all this too, that he's comparing himself to.
Yeah, I can't get away from the part about it being like Tim Anderson's reaction should be our guide to this.
And Anthony, I agree 100%. And when you shared your perspective with Joe and I in the press box at the Garden before Game 3, that was one of the things that made me want to book you for this show. I think that you've got a very good handle and read on this. But what I find a little bit disturbing is that Tony La Russa's comments, it could be that Tim Anderson thinks that Josh is a jerk and that don't call me Jackie, you're making fun of me. It's what I said in 2019. Maybe I'm not Jackie Robinson as a player or as a civil rights leader, right? Or as an example to this country, quite frankly. So you're making fun of me, you're needling me, we're not friends. I'm not going to take it. But that doesn't mean that we know in Josh's heart that he's a racist. And the problem with the suspension, what La Russa has said, is it's coloring what Josh feels in his heart. And now he can be seen as a racist. And I just don't know if that's fair or not.
Well, I mean, how about he explain himself a little bit better then? I mean, he's got a daily opportunity to talk to the public through the media.
Or on this podcast.
Get him on this podcast. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, let's hear some more from him. You know, I look on.
But do you think? Wait, Anthony. Do you think him talking more is really a good thing, or do you think this should just he needs to leave this alone? Because I feel but I feel like it's a third rail, right? Like the more we talk about this, like he said, I'll talk to Tim Anderson. My intent wasn't to be racist. Like,
well, but here's the thing. So I said to Moose, and I think I said to you, you know, as a producer, somebody watched some of my shows, and I started saying, "Oh, I'm Steven Spielberg. I want you to call me Steven." I got news for you. I'm no Steven Spielberg. I'm doing sports TV. I'm very proud of it. I work very, very hard at it. But if I said to anybody, call me Steven, and I didn't get mocked by my friends, I would be disappointed in my friends.
No, I get it. I think it's different. The sensitivity that baseball has with Jackie Robinson, you know, being the 75th anniversary of
but that's
the
on
year.
Tim.
No,
for calling himself Jackie.
Here's the one thing that,
right?
Yeah, no, it certainly is to an extent, and I think
that's
there's
my
a
point
case
on
of
me calling myself Steven. It's ridiculous.
No, right, busting chops. The interesting thing to me about baseball's statement, Anthony, that I wanted to get your thought on was this: is that if it ended with just the exchange of Donaldson and Anderson on the field, and there was no Grandal and Donaldson up at home plate, and there was no benches clearing incident, are we still looking at a suspension?
I don't know the answer to that, Moose.
Because my answer would be no.
It's impossible to tell because we don't know what we would have found out, what would have become public in that thing.
But baseball made it a point in the statement to talk about the fact of, you know, that it led to a benches clearing incident on the field that led to a 1-game suspension and a fine. So my thinking is that if you just have the interaction between him and Anderson on the field, and then you have La Russa saying what he said, and then Anderson agreeing, and then you had the statement afterward by Josh Donaldson. My thinking is, I don't know if Major League Baseball then, I think the incident on the field gave them the leeway to get to hand out the suspension. I don't think if you have that benches clearing incident, I don't think there's a suspension here.
Yeah, I mean that may be possible. I don't know the answer to that, Moose, and I don't know if anybody could know the answer to that fully. You know. But look, they've got, when stuff like that happens, they have to do something. They have to act in some way. And you know, I mean, maybe it's good that they got some sort of a punishment out of this because of the on-field incident, because of the benches cleared out of it. So maybe it's good that happened to sort of shine a light on this kind of stuff, because this kind of stuff can't happen. You know, I mean, guys got to know, look, you may think you're saying something to someone, and that's what you mean X. But the person who's hearing it doesn't hear it as X sometimes because of their own life, their personal experience, their worldview. They hear it as Y. And Y can be very, very troubling. And they can take it in a certain way that you don't intend it. And, you know, and maybe they're wrong. Maybe you did intend it that way. Who knows?
Anthony, when are you teaching your sociology class?
Well, I mean, it's true though. I mean,
I'm serious. I'm going to enroll in that class.
But you have to be.
Me too.
Like in.
I'll be the teacher's pet.
I mean, we're smart enough in society to be able to, or we should be able to think about the impact our words have on others beyond what our intent is. And there's, you know, I mean, Donaldson had to know that this was not just another needling, or to be precise, could be interpreted as not just another needling statement.
Or maybe he's just
if he didn't know that, he should.
Yeah, no, agreed. And that's the point. Maybe he does not have the wherewithal to understand.
I guess, but does he? I mean, he has now opened himself up to be interpreted in a certain way, and that is probably not a way that well, it's not a way that most clear-thinking people would want to be interpreted.
No
Look,
doubt.
I think these teams are going to play in the playoffs. They'll meet up if karma has a way of working out, and it should be very interesting to see when they get together again for sure. Two good teams this season.
Sounds good to me. I think Pix 11 should travel to Chicago.
There you go.
I know some good deep dish pizza places there.
Anthony, how was the pizza last night at the Garden?
I got to say, it was really good, Moose.
Like 1 out of 10, what would you give it?
Well, Arthur
You
Staple
went
from The
pepperoni
Athletic.
for the second slice, I saw.
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. 1 and 1. That's what it was.
You
They
got
gave
to
me
go
a 1 and 1.
downstairs. The barbecue chicken sandwich.
Oh, yeah?
Tremendous.
Oh,
Did you get the prime rib
interesting.
yet?
No,
That sounds
not
like a
yet.
game
It's a little
6.
heavy.
Game 6 decision there. Well, Arthur Staple from The Athletic told me that the pizza, and to quote him, is insanely good. And I was like, really? And I had a show before the game last night, so I rushed up there, and had to get my food in between the first and second period, and the pizza was right there. And I was like, I got a great recommendation, and I got, limited time. And I'm going pizza, and it was worth it. It was really good, I thought. Surprisingly, really good for arena/ballpark pizza.
I got to
Well,
ask.
I
go ahead.
got to say that it was a good call by you. Not as good as the call by me to book you on the show, but it was a good call by you.
Did you get home and stay up for the end of the Mets game?
I had a late night the night before because I was on SNY's Geico Sports Night post game after the West Coast game. So I get home from the Ranger game and I'm like, let me check the Mets, see what's going on. And I say, 8-2. Okay, I can go to bed early, no problem. And then Lindor hits a home run, and I'm like,
yeah.
oh, this is kind of interesting.
8-4.
And then kaboom, everything explodes. I ended up going to bed at 2:00 because I watched the whole.
You did stay up.
I
You're a
did
better
stay
man
up.
than I
Yeah.
am. I passed out on the couch last night. I had to catch the SNY encore. It's a day like today, though, that I wish baseball moved a little slower so that we could savor what happened last night with the Yankees walk-off win. As it is right now, we're
Jose
recording about
Trevino.
3:15, and the Mets are back out on the field
I know.
already. It's
Crazy.
just incredible.
That was that was unlike any game I can remember seeing. Just the up and down and Jock Peterson, and you could talk about strategy in the game with should Buck have brought in the lefty to face Peterson at the very least to force a move by the Giants, and instead they get hurt by it, and Buck is a really good manager, and he's got other things to think about, the bullpen going forward, and you have amazing performances. Lindor 6 RBI.
You mentioned it though. They like throwing the puck on net. They simply put the ball in play in that 8th inning, and with a little bit of hustle and a little bit of poor defense by San Francisco, they clawed their way back into it.
Take that, 3 true outcomes.
Yeah.
Well, Anthony, we loved you. Thanks for spending some time with us this week on the podcast. Talk a little Rangers, talk a little Yankees, closing out, talk a little Mets.
I love it. Thanks for having me, guys. I enjoyed it.
You got it, Anthony.
So, Anthony, thank you so very much. And if anybody out there is still listening, it means you've got to like the show. I mean, you had to. Our half-hour show became almost an hour. So if you don't mind, give us 30 seconds, rate and review us on Spotify and Apple.
We're everywhere now. Google
Yes.
Play Store,
Google Play.
wherever you want. You can check us out on YouTube, the Pix11.com website. We're here to cater to you.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And if you're not busy on Sunday night, you know what? Tune into Channel 11 for New York Sports Nation for these two guys. We'll get Anthony on soon, and for Yankees Nation. Thank you all for listening. We appreciate it. Have a good week, everybody.
Talk to you next week. Seriously, we were supposed to
bet.
do a half hour, but
That was great.
Standing ovation.
It totally flew by.